But I'm James Cottingham. I'm the youngest son of David and Kate Cottingham, who are the founders of DK, so hence DK Engineering is David and Kate. The business was founded in 1977. I know a lot of you have been here before, but some of you won't have. But today is a unique opportunity for you to have a complete tour of DK. So we are going to pretty much every facility that we have, only holding back a few of the ones that we can't go in for privacy reasons of clients. But you will really enjoy what you're going to see today. We are a business of, as I said, founded in 1977. We think we are the only people in the world that can truly specialize in every aspect of Ferrari, every age of Ferrari, and provide the complete service. So whether it's from transport to restoration, race preparation, sales, service, storage, we do it all here at DK Engineering, and absolutely to the highest standard. I am sure, I know a lot of you have been here before and have bought cars from us and experienced our services. But the last 10 years have been quite an amazing time. We've grown even more than we could imagine from what was already a well-established business, but now we are 40 plus employees, and yeah, it's just been a great time over the last 10 years. So I'm here at Little Green Street Farm, which is our head office. We're based just outside of London, the northwest point of the M25 in Chorley Wood. We bought this farm in 2007 and renovated it over a year period and moved in late 2008. So actually, it is coming up to 12 years that we've been here. Over the years, we've added little bits and pieces, but the fundamental core buildings that you'll see today here are the ones that we've had for 10 years. And in a second, I will hand over to Harvey, who will show you around our Prestige showroom. Then we'll go back to me. I will show you around our workshops and talk about the things that we've got there and our handover bay. Then we'll go back to Harvey, who will be at our storage facility, where we house something like 180 cars in one building. We actually have about over 350 cars in our care at any one time, including one collection in its own building, which is 100 cars alone. So it's quite an undertaking and a busy time at DK. So we're going to start here at DK first. So this is our reception, and anyone that comes to DK will be immediately greeted by our trophy cabinet. So I'm sorry for the guys that have already had a look at this, but I'm sure you can bear with me just whilst we recap. So these are actually not all of our trophies. We have not once to blow our own trumpets, but we have a lot more trophies than these. But this pretty much represents where we were up to when we moved into the buildings in 2008. And there's a great variety of stuff. It's mainly racing and concours events, an awful lot of Shell Historic Challenge trophies, which we were very active in that championship in the 90s. That's the trophy I was talking about earlier, which was when I shared our family Testarossa at Le Mans in 2007 in a support race for the 24-hour race, and we won our class. And it was 50 years to the weekend that car actually finished first in class in the original event itself. So that was pretty special. These are some models of the Écurie-Francorchamps cars, which were given to us by the Swatters family, who Jacques Swatters founded Écurie-Francorchamps, because we've always done a lot with them, helped them a lot over the years. We restored this GTO, we restored that TDF as well, and also in the family collection we have the Comp Daytona and the Testarossa, as we discussed. Lots of other bits and pieces. Nice, always nice to have different trophies. I think these days when I go to race meetings, they all seem the same, but back then there was great variety, especially when Ferrari was involved. All of these are official Ferrari issue trophies from the Shell Historic Challenge. And some nice trophies here from the Louis Vuitton Concours, which used to be at the Hurlingham Club, which we won a number of times. But that has been superseded these days by Salon Privé, which is a great event held at Blenheim Palace. And finally, our Queen's Award, which we were honoured and privileged to receive last year for our international trading. And everyone was very honoured to receive that, and it was great to give the guys something as something of a memento of their hard work and efforts and achievements, with all the sort of celebrations that went with that. So, as I explained, this is our some more models. We love models. We'll see them everywhere we go. But as I explained, this is our main facility here at DK, at Little Green Street Pharmacies. And so all our offices are here, our restoration facilities are here, and our main showroom. all of our showrooms today, one which is only 8 cars here at the main office, but all of our appointments are by, all our viewings are by appointment only. So everyone will either have an appointment to come and see us, or we'll take them to our other showrooms if the car's not here, or we'll have the car ready for them. But just something that's really interesting, which belongs to a friend of ours, Catherine Flatt. She lent this to us when we opened the showroom here 10 years ago. And it's a Maserati motorbike, which not many people know they made, but they made them in the 50s. And it was a bit of a money-making exercise because they were cheap to make, and obviously Maserati was a great brand at the time. So that's a very cool thing. And then a little cabinet of trinkets, just a small selection of the things that we have in stock or manufacture, have collected over the years: switches and gauges and lights, rev counters, gear shift gates, all the different sorts of badges that you need from over the years, horns, stub axles that we've had made to our own design, upgraded, Cosworth pistons that we've had made. So there we go. So into the main showroom then. Obviously we are Ferrari specialists, and that's what we're famous for, but that doesn't mean that we do solely Ferrari. And having such a large client base, and also having so many cars in storage, and actually obviously being car lovers, we do now and again have different brands and different marks in our door, in through the doors. And a Carrera GT is a particular favourite of ours. They've been very kind to us over the years, and actually in the last 6 months we've had a really good run with them. You may have seen a couple of different coloured cars. We had a midnight blue car and we had a cobalt blue car, both of which sold within a week. And this is the one that we have in stock at the moment, which is a car that was owned by one owner from 2007 until very recently, and it's done 30,000 miles. So it's a decent mileage car, but it's been extremely well maintained, and actually some eye-watering bills in the file for a car that, at the time when those bills were issued, some of them sort of to the tune of 50,000. It was only worth 300 at the time, so someone really did lavish care and attention on it. £130,000. We've got for GTB here, which is the original and pure form of the 275 GTB design. It's called short nose because as you can probably see, compared to other 275s you might be familiar with, but it's got a shorter nose. So the grille and the bumper design is slightly different. That car is actually, it is Classic A certified. It is all correct and matching numbers, but it does not have its original engine. So it's not matching numbers engine, but the body and gearbox are. And as a result, it's priced at a big discount of just shy of £1.3 million. And if that was the original engine in the car, it would be more like, in left-hand drive, 1.75. So it's a huge discount for a consideration, and a small sacrifice. I think you could almost afford to buy the Carrera GT with the change, which makes it a really interesting proposition to me, especially if you want to get into 60s Ferraris. There's nothing better than a 275 GTB with its independent suspension, disc brakes all round, 5-speed gearbox. It's a great car. And we've actually got one of these in the family collection, and we are big fans of them. Do love the looks of the original short nose, because I think that's the way they intended it to look. That was the intended design, and it's got a lot going for it. Love those. Another favourite of ours, this one's just arrived literally on Friday, and this is a 911 GT. People do refer to them as a 993 GT2, but technically it is just called a 911 GT. Very rare car, less than 200 built. As a race car, the GT2 was pretty much the most successful race car ever, because they just went on and on and on for years and won so much. And this was the homologation special for that model. And gotta love the bolt-on arches. They are just very cool, very mean, very aggressive. Makes people ask questions that don't know what they're looking at, which I love. And this car's got a great spec. Again, 30,000 miles, bucket seats, but it has electric windows and air conditioning. A lot of them didn't, to save weight, but I think in today's day and age, you want to be comfortable, don't you? So you want air conditioning, you want electric windows. You don't really care about the bit of weight you're saving. But that's a great car, and that's just about to go on the market at £925,000, which is Actually very, very well priced considering where they were at the end of last year, but there's no doubting at the moment we just need to be slightly more aggressive on our pricing to get cars sold. But if I'm sure many of you follow us on Instagram, you would have seen that we've been very busy and we have been pricing cars right. Next up, the cars probably that we're most famous for. There's no doubt that we've sold more F40s than anyone else in the world, and we love them. Of course, we've got five cars in stock at the moment. Not all of them advertised, just one advertised. But this, we were at a show last year and someone started telling me about this car, showed me some pictures, and one gin and tonic later, we bought it. And we've had it for sale with our friends at Gerardo & Co. They had it in Paris on their stand. So it's not on our website at the moment. But this is truly one of the most original and best F40s that we've had in years. You can just see, I mean, everyone always goes on about weave, and I'm not sure if on the quality of zoom if you can see it, but this car is incredible. It's 480 miles from new, and a UK car as well. So always been in the UK, 2 owners from new, literally brand new. So original that it's even got the little stickers that used to be removed from the seatbelts that date when they were made. And I get that most people want a car to use and enjoy, and I really do appreciate that. And this car is too low a mileage to use, you know, to do thousands and thousands of miles. But why not have 2? And why not have one that's absolutely like brand new? As you can see, so that's a lovely car. Is it on original tyres, someone asked? Yes, it is. Absolutely on original tyres. So old, I don't think they actually have date stamps on these, but we have checked them. They are definitely the original. I feel like I'm saying that everything's our favourites, but actually, again, competition Daytonas. So the factory built 15 cars in between 71 and 73, 5 cars in each year as full race cars. This car wasn't one of those 15, but 10 privateers during that period converted cars from street cars to race cars. And this was done by a chap called Kirk White. He actually sadly passed away very recently, but I was lucky enough to be able to have a great telephone conversation with him before he passed away about the car. And in 72, he had this converted by Holman and Moody in the States, who are famous for the later GT40s. This car is actually fitted with brakes from a later GT40, which is superior to a standard Daytona. And this car raced at Sebring and was set to win its class, but unfortunately broke a drive shaft because the engine had been built by Holman and Moody to produce over 450 horsepower at the time. And yeah, it broke a drive shaft. It was pretty much the only thing they didn't upgrade. But a great car, you can use these on the road. So this is really the last of the competition Ferraris, similar to a 250 GTO or a 250 short wheelbase competition. You could actually get in and drive on the road, and it's not too compromised. You know, it is really noisy, of course, but with headphones on or with the silenced exhaust, that is a great car for the road. Got some great history behind it, and just so eligible. Le Mans Classic, you could race that at Le Mans Classic. Lots of road rallies, Modena Centauri, Tour Auto. It's also Classic A certified. As I said, only 10 cars are accepted by the factory as having been period conversion. So it's an incredibly rare thing. Just to put it into perspective, the 10 cars that were built by the factory are valued at somewhere between $8 and $10 million a piece because they're true competition factory built cars. This Comp Daytona, we are asking just over £2.5 million for, which is, you know, a huge reduction because it wasn't built by the factory, but it did run in period. It did race in period. It had a very, very interesting history. It's very original. And as I said, it's Class K certified. So someone that's looking for something that's got a bit of a story that they can use on the road, that they can go and do some of these mega historic events that are out there, that is the car. And there's some great videos on YouTube of this car, as well as some great videos on YouTube of us competing with another Comp Daytona in Italy on the Modena Centauri. So if you want to get a feeling for what they're like, watch those videos and turn the volume up. Next up, we have a 2.7 RS Touring. This is in light yellow with script. Great little spotlights, love these. And this is when people are looking for RS Tourings, you always hear that question, is it first 500? They built close to 1,500 cars, but the first 500 cars are deemed to be lighter in weight and the original homologation specials. They only had to build 500 for homologation purposes. They went on to build 1,500 because they were such a good car, probably the best all-round 911 ever. I mean, it's certainly the most popular. But people, you know, a little bit like F40s, they always want that. They always ask the question, has it got weave? You know, is it low mileage? Is it? Because they're all red with red. When it comes to RSs, is it first 500? Well, this car is chassis 29. So it's super, super early. And it's probably one of the earliest cars in existence, because a lot of those early chassis numbers up to sort of 15 or so were prototypes and test cars, which no longer exist. So that's a really special car that was owned by a great client of ours for a long time, who is a man of exceptional taste and has only the very best. We sold it to the current owner, I think 5 years ago. He's used it fairly regularly, not much in recent years because he's pursuing a new career as a pop star, which is he's doing very well at. But this is the car, and it's just ready to go, perfect condition. Well, I can't say perfect, but near to perfect condition, and a very, very nice car. So, next up, one of 5, Grigio Titano Enzo. This is a car actually that was in the family collection for a number of years a while back. You may remember the car, but we sold it to a client who's had it since 2015, and it's done 10,000 miles from new. I believe it is now the only factory Grigio Titano car left in Europe. There were 2, but the other one was sold to the States to a very big collector last year. Black interior with the Tessuto inserts. Great service history. And an Enzo, if anyone's ever sort of lived with an Enzo, they are so good at just doing mileage. You know, that, for a blast down to Le Mans, there is nothing better out there than this, because it's comfortable, but it's still raw, it's fast, it feels like a lightweight super hypercar. I think everything post this era became a bit heavy. I mean, you can actually throw this around and drive it on the throttle, believe it or not. And I don't think you could do that with a LaFerrari, unless you're power slide lover. Very brave. But that's a lovely car. And we've got a thing for alternative coloured F50s and Enzos. Last year we sold a silver car, which is not this car. This is Grigio Titano. We sold an Argento car, which was one of 7. And we also sold a TDF blue car, which was one of 2. So we love alternative colours. And that's a fabulous car. It's priced at a premium. We're asking £2.15 million, but it's worth it because there's probably only 20 or so Enzos in non-red, black or yellow, which obviously red, black and yellow were the standard colours from the factory. You had to be a VIP client. You had to wait until the end of production to get a different colour. And I think that's worth it because these days it's so rare to find a car that's special like that. Final car in this main showroom, 275 GTB4. This is actually sold. It's just waiting to have its pre-delivery inspection in our workshops. Again, we're uniquely placed because we have our own facilities. Every car, when it comes in, goes into the workshop, and before it leaves, it goes into the workshop. Even if it's something slightly modern, we will do a basic check over, but a car like this will have a full service, and we'll go through some thorough tests. And this was actually a car that we bought at the end of last year from someone that I've not done any business with before, but was very straightforward, and I'm really happy with the deal we did with him, and he's really happy with the car that he got as well. And that's a great color combination. This car, rarely for a 4-cam, raced in period. And again, a 4-cam, we talked about 275s and how good they are as an all-round car, but the 4-cam with that extra sort of torquey and silky smooth motor as a GT car, lovely car. And finally, just before I hand over to Harvey, who's in the other showroom, this is just one of our libraries. We've got 2 libraries as part of DK, and obviously, because we've been going since '77, we've got stacks and stacks of photos and documentation, and we've actually just invested in scanning in all of our service records and all of our sales records right back to '77, so that we can offer that as a service to people who buy cars and want to complete their history files now, we're able to sell history files for cars that may have been depleted. And that gives you a sort of a summary of the main showroom. So Adam, if you want to put over to Harvey.
Good morning. Hi.
Harvey. Don't forget to turn your camera over, Harvey.
Can everyone hear me? I hope so. Sorry about the delays earlier. Thank you, James. I will rotate the camera so you can see where I am. So here we are in our, what we call the gallery, but really is our prestige showroom. So as a business, in the main, we're set across about 5 different sites. So where James is now is what we would really call HQ, which is where the sales staff are based. The workshops are there as well, which James will take us around in a second. And all of the personnel are here. Where I am is our second location, and here we have 3 further showrooms. So I'll take you around one now, and then James will take you around the other 2 later, while I nip off to the third site. And the third site is our main storage facility, where we have about 150 cars that we look after for people. And in there are a couple of sales cars, typically cars that are already in the store that have been given to us to sell. So in many cases, it makes sense to leave them there. And then we have an engine shop at Mallory Park in Leicestershire. And as James touched on earlier, we have another facility which is only for one collector's car. So that's a facility of upwards of another 100 cars, but they're just his, and we manage that for him. But this is the gallery, as I said. This is our prestige showroom. So much more of the modern stuff, and a lot more of the stuff that I see on the supercar driver meetings. So the first car in is this Monospecchio Monodado Testarossa. So these early Testarossas had, as you can clearly see, the sort of unsymmetrical one single flying mirror, and the Italian for that is Monospecchio, and Monodado refers to this single central lock wheel. The later Testarossas had a 5 wheel bolt arrangement. The very early cars are Monospecchio and Monodado. Then they went to twin mirrors, but still had the center lock wheels. And then the later cars have obviously 2 mirrors and the 5 bolt wheels. And as you probably know, they built a lot more Testarossas than any Ferrari they'd ever built before. So in the sort of classic market we find ourselves now, and a lot of these cars are red, clearly people want to have the best of the best, and they want to have the best they can. And these early cars with these distinguishing features are more desirable, and they are more expensive. Believe it or not, this was a car delivered new to a Turkish gentleman, and the front page of the service book states he was based in Istanbul. It's not clear whether he took delivery of the car in Switzerland or in Istanbul, but I think it would have been a hell of a sight in 1987 to have seen a Testarossa on the road in Istanbul. Next to it, second in, is this 991 Gen 1 GT3 RS. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that this car is actually on collectingcars.com, which is a new auction platform which seems to be very well placed for our lockdown corona times. So we're sort of trialing the platform, and the cars on there, I checked about 15-20 minutes ago, and the bids were just under 130,000. There is a buyer's premium on that. So at the minute, that's amazing value. It's a 9,000 mile car. It's ultraviolet. So these cars, standard colors, white, silver, ultraviolet, or coral. And for me, ultraviolet is the color to have that car in. It's the only RS since the 73 RS that was available in purple. And I think it's the color to have. Ceramic brakes, club sport, bucket seats. I think the earlier 996s and 997 RSs had such a reputation for being hard, the sort of cars that you couldn't really drive without getting a bad back. If you hit a pothole, you'd know about it. But with the 991s, the damping's so good and the ride quality is so good that actually I think this is an everyday usable car. And I think at the money it's at now, it's not that much more than buying a new 992S. So have a look at that on Collecting Cars. I think the auction ends in about 2 days, so I suspect we'll have a flurry of interest at the last minute, as always happens with these things. But I think that's a fabulous value car for somebody and something to look forward to when we can get out again. Similar but different, the Speciale, which is obviously Ferrari's answer to the same question. This is a UK car in launch spec. So when they launched the cars, this is the spec that they thought suited it best. So clearly Rosso Corsa with what they call a blue Nart stripe and gold wheels. It's interesting actually. I've had a lot of calls and emails from people in the last few weeks that have got pistas, that have ordered pistas, have maybe had a Speciale, and have actually come full circle and having not had the pista very long, are thinking about changing that into a Speciale. And I don't know whether that's partly a value proposition, but clearly a Speciale is a less expensive car than a pista. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more about what these cars do. And a Speciale, a Speciale is less powerful than a pista, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I think potentially because of that, the cars are more engaging and more involving. And don't forget, a pista's turbo, so I do think you get a better sound out of these. And I do think possibly they are more of a driver's car. So let's see what happens in the future on pista and Speciale values. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Speciales being worth more than a pista before not too long. This car's on at 260, which again I think is very good value. There's not that long ago it would have been impossible to find a right drive car sub 300. So I think pistas had an impact on values on these as well. Naturally, when something is replaced, there's always a softening in the values of the thing that it replaces. But I think that's a really lovely car for somebody. And again, like the RS, there's no reason why that couldn't be used every day. Scuderias and Challenge Stradales are hard. They are quite raw cars, whereas the Speciale doesn't lose the refinement you need to make it everyday usable. So it's on our website. It's here. You know where to come. 550 Barchetta. So one of 448 cars. This car was actually the 6th car produced. It's one of 48 right-hand drive cars, and it was built for Eric Clapton. So Eric Clapton was no stranger to owning Ferraris, and he's had almost all of them. And this was his Barchetta. He's had more than one Barchetta over the years. This was the car that he ordered new. Tour de France with tan, which I think is unmistakably a classic combination, especially for the bigger V12 cars. It's a 13,000 mile car, and when Eric Clapton was finished with it, it ended up with Pete Townsend. So it's had a bit of a rock star life, this car. We've had it for sale. I think just before the lockdown, really, we went live with it. And I think that's a really great thing. Very usable again. I think very quirky. There's no real car or anything like it. And at 448, it's very limited. Keeping with the front-engined V12 theme is this 812. I think it's undeniable that these are an awesome bit of kit. And I think probably highly likely the last naturally aspirated V12 we'll see. I'm not sure whether the V12s will go turbocharged like they have with Aston, but I think it's inevitable that there'll be either a hybrid power or a turbo add-on for whatever replaces the 812. 812 or TDF? That's a very good question. TDF's a lot more money. I think probably a TDF because it's a little bit more layering, it's rarer. But a TDF is 3 times the 812, and you can't deny that the 812 does everything that the TDF does. I love the spec of this car. A lot of people now are really getting specs right on these cars. When you look at some of the older generations, 599s and 430s and 360s, so many cars were just red with black leather or red with Kramer. But it's so nice now that Ferrari have sorted out the Atelier program and people can really make these cars classy, because I certainly wouldn't, but I don't think everybody just wants a red with black Ferrari. So it's nice to see this in Canada for Chile, which is a historical grey, very nice, with blue trim, which is really, I think, nice. And it means that no two cars are the same. This car is on 245, which is about £100,000 off list price. So again, I can't help but think that's mega value. Somebody else has paid the depreciation for you. Aston Vanquish S. So the last Vanquish, the last Aston to use that 6-litre V12. And I think probably the standout model of recent times for Aston. I'm in love with the colour of this car. It's Chiltern green. It's a special Q colour. And very, very high spec car and very low mileage. It's 120 miles. It's a one owner from new car. When he bought the car, I tell a lie, it's 110 miles. When he bought the car, he was very busy with the sale of a business, and as a result, sort of never got around to using the car. It's been serviced as it should have been, but it really does represent the closest thing to a brand new Vanquish S. There's been a big resurgence on green, as most of you may know, and a bit of a make green great again movement. And I think this is a wonderful colour for what's a really special car. Works so well with the carbon roof as well. From the same home, this is a Vanquish S Ultimate. So the end of the run, as they did with the original Vanquish, at the very end of the run, they did the Ultimates. And an Ultimate should have been either grey, black, or white with stripes. So they had sort of like an orange embellishment that came around the bumper. The owner of this car, having bought quite a few Astons, he really wasn't up for the orange flashes and wanted something a little bit more subtle. So this is the car that he spec'd. No flashes, just grey, very subtle. Volante, obviously, like the green car, it's very low mileage. This car is 120 miles, and as I said, really like new. I don't think you could ask for a car that has been cared for better and clearly lower mileage. This central dash that Aston modified but haven't really changed for so long, such a classic design, and really amazing attention to detail on the interior. Here's the 355 we currently have. Over the years, we've sold many 355 Spiders, GTSs, GTBs, and in the early days, funny enough, the cars with the F1 gearbox were very popular. Clearly now, the 355 is sort of heralded as the last really analog Ferrari, and I think if you're going to have a car that's heralded as an analog car, you've got to have a manual gearbox. So I think justly, the manual cars are now probably worth twice the price of their automatic F1 gearbox equivalents. This car is clearly a manual GTB, a car that we've known a long time. It was bought by a very good client of ours who bought, I think over the years, maybe over a 5-year period, I think he bought 40 cars from us. They're all stored in our store and all maintained by ourselves. And this was the 355 he bought, and we looked after the car for him for a while. He didn't do massive amounts of mileage because clearly when you have 40 cars, it's difficult to drive all 40. So the car's done low mileage in his ownership, but a total of about 30,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a 355, and for a car that, would you believe, it's 25 years old, is not big mileage. 2 years ago, he thinned out the collection. I think, as a lot of people in recent years have realised, you're much better off having less higher quality or higher value cars than too many cars really to own, insure, service, drive. So I sold the car 2 years ago to the current owner. He's enjoyed it. We've carried on maintaining it for him. Last year it had a really major service. Very classic spec for a 355, red with black, red carpets, manual. The later cars with the airbag steering wheel, that what we call a 5.2. And again, lovely condition, well looked after. It's got a massive history file with its spare keys, all of its service books and documentation. This is priced at 85,000, and you have to say, keep saying it, but it does look like good value considering what you have to pay today to get into modern Ferrari ownership. You know, the price is now for a new Ferrari, an 812, like I said, with good spec is 350 or 330,000 pounds, depending on how you spec it. And a 355 is a true great. It's one of those cars that is already worth more than the 360 that replaced it, and probably the 430 that replaced that. Very usable. And like I sort of touched on with the mileage, it's also nice to have cars that reach an age where suddenly they're not defined by their mileage. I think we're all probably guilty of staring at speedos when you go out in your nice cars and you think, actually, you sort of start finding, or I certainly have in the past, start finding reasons not to put miles on cars. And that's really sad. And one of the nice things about 550s and 355s is it doesn't matter if it's 30,000 miles or 35,000 miles. It doesn't make a difference to the value. Lovely things. And styling-wise, I think very classic, very, very well respected today. Totally different. This is our back mono, which is a one-owner, 600 mile from new car. It's not a Ferrari, but it is painted in a Ferrari colour, Abu Dhabi blue. And that was spec'd up by the first owner, who's a fairly well-known racing driver. And I just think that's an awesome thing. It's certainly not one for long journeys or taking anybody else out, but as a piece of engineering, I don't think you can beat these. And in terms of attention to detail and the way they're made, and the way that BAC, Briggs Automotive Company, put these things together, and the attention to detail they put into everything, I don't think there's another car on the road that's quite so sophisticated and focused. They're amazing on after service as well. You know, if you have any problem at all, you just call them and they'll tell you what to do. If your battery's gone flat and it's a lithium battery and you're not sure where it is or how to get to it, they cannot be too helpful. And I think that's all too rare in this day and age. I know that a lot of main dealers for big manufacturers, if you call them and ask them to help you end up at a call center on hold and nobody calls you back. So it is refreshing, I'm sure, because they're a smaller company, to know that if you have an issue, you get called back, you get service, and you get looked after. And their servicing is quite novel. Rather than having to send the car back to them, they've got a mobile servicing van or man and van. So he'll come to you with all the tools and they service it for you at the office or at home. And I think that's really refreshing, because you shouldn't, with all the right tools, there's no reason why it should have to go back to somebody else's workshop if you've got the space for them to do it at you. 3 more cars to talk to you about while we're in here. This is a semi-lightweight E-Type racer. So that's a car that was built about 15 years ago. So converted from a road car into a racer. And the term semi-lightweight, I'll explain that for you. So in 1965, Jaguar built 14 full lightweight E-Types. So full lightweight meaning aluminium body panels, aluminium monocoque chassis. And those cars had a wide angle 3.8 engine, Weber carburetors, and of course, one of the most famous racing Jaguars, and that was the ultimate E-Type. Alongside that, privateers would modify their cars to what we now call semi-lightweight spec. So these cars have an aluminium hardtop, aluminium doors, bonnet, and boot lid. But the rear bodywork here, and this section here of front bodywork is steel, and the chassis itself is steel. So that's why they're called a semi-lightweight. And at any historic race meeting, there's always dozens of semi-lightweight E-types. They are probably the most eligible, the most versatile historic race car. They are winners in almost any race you enter them into, whether that's 60s Endurance, the TT at Goodwood, Spa 6 Hours. They've, E-types have won all of those races. And this is a car, as I say, about 15 years ago, converted from a road car, and has raced consistently for, I think, all of its 15 years as a race car. It's got valid FIA papers. So for somebody that wants to either get in fresh to historic motorsport, to go and do some racing, go and try and do things like Spa 6 Hours or Goodwood, this is a great car. Being an E-type, it's road registered, so there's no reason why you can't use it on the road and on the circuit. Or an opportunity for somebody that perhaps is already racing, maybe with something either a little less powerful or perhaps that runs in a different category, to have either a second race car or upgrade the race car they've got. It's missing its headlamp covers. They're off being repaired. But other than that, the car is ready to go when we can get racing again. This is something quite unusual and something that I can almost guarantee nobody will have seen another one of. On the face of it, a Mondial with 575 wheels. Although as you look a little bit closer, you start to see the clues that it's something else altogether. Racing seats, very different switchgear, racing steering wheel, and a digital dash. And actually, when you're really getting close, what this car is a bit of a monster. It belongs to a client of ours that had sort of had everything, but he was quite a tall guy, and having had an F40, having had many other things, nothing was really very comfortable for him. The only car that he really drove, that he really felt very comfortable in, was his Mondial. So he set us a challenge, which is that could we make the Mondial as quick as the F40? I'm not sure we thought he was being serious at first, but as the conversation progressed, he asked if we thought we could fit an F40 engine and make that work in a Mondial. Having then realised he was being serious, we did our homework and did our research, and actually we discovered the best fit for a Mondial would be, remarkably, the engine out of a 430 Challenge. So the race car only 430 variant, has its own engine management system, its own dash controls, and clearly its own engine spec. So that's what we did. So the project took about 18 months. And clearly it's not quite as simple as just shoehorning a big engine in a Mondial, and that's why it's running 575 wheels, because they're housing bigger brakes. The suspension's been upgraded, and the whole car really was restored at the same time. So that's something quite bonkers. I can't show you on this video, but if we did go up the road in it, you'd be amazed at how docile, how usable, and how versatile that motor is in this car. I have done a few road miles in the car, and like I say, you'd be amazed at how tame it is on the road. Clearly, when you open it up, it's something altogether different. And last, but by no means least, is this, which is one of the 99 Zagato Vanquish shooting brakes. As I said, 99 cars built. We've just sold this car. We were asking 535. It's a UK car, right drive car, 21 miles from new. Just a mega thing. I think a lot of people, and actually the guy that bought the car told me, and I think it's the case for a few people, bought Vanquish, either normal Vanquishes or they bought Zagato coupes, and just don't have luggage space. And there's no denying that that's an increasing issue with modern supercars, particularly mid-engine cars. The luggage space is just no good. So the guy that has bought this, I know, intends to use it. I think he intends to go on a few road trips in the car, and I sort of want to go with him, because I think he'll have an amazing time. Loaded up with his luggage. As you can see, it is a proper boot. You can put plenty of bags in there. You can go for 2 weeks if you like. The good news is we've got another one coming, which is exactly the same. Same spec, also right drive car, and almost the same mileage. Nice thing about this car is a little bit like the other Astons we looked at. it's not, I don't think it's too blingy on spec. A lot of these cars have gold wheels and the Villa d'Este pack, which makes this section here goes all gold. And I think for some people, perhaps a little bit more understated is better sometimes. Like all Astons, it is a lovely place to be. Exquisite attention to detail. There's a Gato Z stitching. Just a lovely, lovely thing. Like I said, 22 miles, and ready for its next owner. Hopefully, we're ready for James, who should be in the workshop, ready to take over.
Hi guys, thanks Harvey. So I'm here now in the workshop buildings, but this is actually our handover bay, which is one of my favourite rooms at DK, and everyone always wants to know where this is, but this is our handover bay. So we've got a cool selection of cars in here at the moment. I'll just flip the camera.
James, we've got Pete Hunter in the house. He's wanting to know if he can see his Lusso.
Oh, that's coming up, don't worry.
Good.
Hang on, let me just... So this is our handover bay, which is, I have mentioned it already, but what we're really proud of here at DK is that we do provide the complete service. So whenever we service or sell a car, it will be put into this room for handover. And when people are in here, they can see in the background, and there's the Lusso, which we'll come on to in a minute. But they look into the workshops, and they can just see that this is, this is not us getting other people to do the service and maintenance for us. This is us putting our own rubber stamp on the cars. So looking at the cars that we've got in here, this is a 500 Testarossa, so not a TRC like the yellow and black car that DK are quite famous for, but a TR, which is the 56 variant. This is a car that's been owned by a friend of the family's for a very, very long time, that was in desperate need of restoration. He couldn't afford to do it at the time, but we finally started it in 2012, finished it in 2017. My dad raced it at Goodwood in 2017, I think it was. And we also then showed it at Salon Privé after it had been raced at Goodwood and won the event overall. So this is really sort of a really good case study of our original background of this business and what we're what we're known for and what we really are best at, which is the restoration of 50 sports cars. This is, what David and Kate built the business on in the late 70s and 80s, restoring cars like this for people like Ralph Lauren, Lord Bamford, all sorts of clients like that. And yeah, we love 50 sports Ferraris, and they're just so special. But it doesn't get more special than this car. And this car, which I'm sure many of you have seen it in the press over the last year, this is a 166 Barchetta, and this was the very car that won Le Mans and the Mille Miglia, so not one or the other, but Le Mans and the Mille Miglia in 1949. The first Ferrari to win both of those events. It was one of the very earliest Ferraris built, in fact, and it's the only car in existence to have won both those events. So in terms of value, almost impossible to value. It's been in a very substantial collection in the States for nearly 30 years. We were tasked with looking after the car for the last 18 months, so it was flown over to us last year. We took it to a number of events in Europe and in the UK. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be at Villa d'Este very shortly, but that event has been postponed until October. Not sure if it will go still, but we shall see. But that is a really, 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 really important Ferrari, because it's the car that put Ferrari on the map. When this car went to Le Mans that year, it was, Ferrari wasn't really a well-known mark. It was a relatively well-known mark, but it wasn't really well-known. And amazingly, Luigi Chinetti, who drove the car with Lord Selsdon was not very well. And so Luigi Chinetti drove over 23 hours of the 24 hours in this car alone. Incredible, incredible. And he was 50 years old at the time when he did that. I mean, I'm mid-30s, I couldn't do that. So I think that's just amazing. So that is truly one of the most significant Ferraris you will ever see. And here it is sitting at DK at the moment. Next up in here is this Grigio Alloy Enzo. We said we like cars that are different colours. This is actually, we've just done a clutch on it for our friends at Gerardo & Co, who have it for sale at the moment. It's one of two in that colour, so it's not part of our stock. It's just a service car that we have serviced for, done the clutch on for Gerardo & Co. And it is just over 2,000 kilometres from new, one owner from new, hell of an opportunity. And just look how good it looks. So difficult to photograph this car, and I don't know how well it will come across in the video, but in real life, this car is twice as good as it looks in the photos. It is stunning, stunning, stunning. Gris alloy on a 360 wasn't necessarily my favourite colour, but it certainly is fantastic on the Enzo. And this car's got everything with it, you know, model, briefcase that was made specially by Scudoni for the owner of this car in carbon fibre with blue leather. All the bits and pieces. And I'm amazed that Max hasn't sold it, but maybe it's because Max isn't that well known amongst the sort of guys that would buy these sorts of cars in the UK. But that, you know, that's, if you want a collection of interesting modern cars, that's got to be the centerpiece. Very hard to beat. Okay, so just quickly take you next door. So this is our historic servicing bay traditionally. This is a 550 Maranello that Harvey's just sold, which is ex-Ross Brawn. And again, you know, we've talked about how important colours are, because this car was ordered, or rather given, to Ross Brawn as a sign, as a recognition for his efforts in the F1 team when it was a new car. It's got this really unusual, much darker, coir sort of interior leather, which on a 550 is super rare, but coupled with the, I'm assuming it's Tour de France blue, I apologise, I don't actually know. That is a great colour combination. What a car. And great history with it as well. None other than Ross Brawn. Maserati that we've just done a service on here. And then many of you will know our F40 GT, which is a car that raced in the Italian GT Championship. It was retained in the early 90s. It was retained by the original owner until 2015, when it was sold to Adrian Setil, who had it for 2 years, and then we bought it from him. Amazingly, Stefano Bucci, who owned that car for all those years, did over 100,000 kilometers, including his race mileage, in this car. And whilst we've had it, we've totally restored it now, because the last thing we hadn't done was the engine, but over the winter, we've rebuilt the engine, so we've restored the engine bay, and looking forward to getting that back out again. So great car, and we talked about earlier how all F40s are red with red. Well, luckily this one isn't, so sets it apart for us. Right. Into the main workshop area. $5,000 QV Countach, currently for sale on our website. Photos of it by the very talented Alex Penfold, I think, almost broke Instagram a few weeks ago when we first published it. Great cars in terms of, again, a car that appeals to guys that have modern cars. You know, we all had these on our wall as kids in the 80s, and you know, that's a box you've got to tick. I was having a chat with someone that we sold a Dino to the other day, and the most surprising thing about a Countach is how fast they are. You know, they are really, really fast, but you've got to get going in them. It's not a low-speed car, it's a high-speed car. And without the rear wing, I think this car's just perfect. With those sills and without the rear wing, that's just perfect. And again, color combination. In today's environment and market, people love this sort of combination, and it's sort of, it was unusual at the time, but with hindsight was the right decision. Okay, next up, a black with green leather 250 GT Lusso. Many of you will have seen this on our social media at the end of last year. We've just sold it, well, we restored it for the gentleman that Harvey was referring to, who bought a number of cars over the years. But sadly, he decided to, well, sadly for him, he decided to sell it. But luckily, we found a new owner for the car who's really lovely, lovely guy, and is super excited about owning it. And quite right, because we had so many people that were disappointed they missed the car when it was sold. And it sold within a couple of weeks. But, you know, that's down to the color combination again. It's one of only a few cars that left the factory in black with a black exterior. And it was black interior originally, but we decided to go for the green, which was quite a brave choice, but it works. And the car is absolutely perfect. So we're just doing a few finishing jobs, fitted some seat belts for him, and then we're going to run it in for him so that he can have an enjoyable summer road trip with it this year, we hope. But that's just stunning. And again, a full in-house DK restoration, as good as it gets. This is an engine and gearbox from a 250 short wheelbase that we're doing a full restoration on at the moment. You probably have seen the videos that we've put up of that and a few photos. We actually rebuilt the engine and gearbox a few years ago, so this has just been a dressing exercise in terms of refreshing it whilst we're doing the body work at the moment. Yellow F50, great colour. We're huge into F cars. There's always 288s, F40s and F50s around us, and Enzos. This is the Testarossa that we sold last week, so as part of the sale, again, we've been able to do a full in-house cam belt service as part of the sale, full PDI for the owner, picked up a few things on the car that we're going to do as part of the sale. That's sort of reassurance that we can give buyers that we have properly rubber stamped this car. We've not sent it somewhere else. We've not asked anyone to cut some corners. We've done everything that needs to be done to it. And I think he's a very lucky boy because it was priced very, very well. And it's a decent mileage, 11,000 miles. And it's just a lovely car. Then our F50, the silver one, which again was another Penfold breaking of Instagram exercise, which we sold at the end of last year. Bit of a unique proposition, this one, because there were 4 silver F50s originally. One of them was a UK car, which unfortunately it's still with the original owner, but has also sustained a bit of damage during its life, which is a shame. Another car, which was a UK car, was stolen and is now was stolen from London, and it belonged to a very well-known individual here in the UK and is in Japan rolling around. And believe it or not, in Japan, the laws are as such that even though everyone knows it's stolen, as long as it stays in Japan, it's not a problem for the owner. And then the 4th car is a US spec car. So this really is the only sort of unblemished history European spec silver F50 in existence. We didn't even advertise this car. We had someone in mind for it, and it went. And it's had a major service, and the reason it's still in the workshop is because we've had a new fuel tank made for it, as you need to change those really every sort of 10 to 15 years. So we've just fitted a new fuel tank, and that will be finished this week. And they've already used it a little bit at the start of the year and had a lot of fun with it. Great car. This is our indoor wash down and detailing bay, something a bit different in there. That's not really our usual thing, but we've got a ramp in here as well, so it means that we can lift the cars up, take the wheels out, clean the wheel arches if they've been caught, out and about in the rain and rubbish weather. And I know it is all about using cars, but you have to remember, if you lavished £400,000 on a full restoration and it's mint underneath and you get caught in the rain, you're going to want it cleaned properly, aren't you? So we've got the facilities to do that. Right, moving through to the full workshop. There's the Lusso. So this is a great project that we're working on for Mr. H, and really refreshing actually. And I had an email conversation with someone about another car the other day, where it's a shame that everyone's become obsessed with Classic A these days. And I understand that if you're new to it and you want the car to be rubber stamped by Ferrari, it's quite reassuring. And just for the record, Mr. H is not a car dealer. Mr. H is the owner who's on here. And this car was modified to go racing in the 80s, and we did a full engine rebuild of it in 2007. It's been repainted green in recent years, and we are semi-restoring it to semi-competition spec, but the specification that we're going to is what the client wants. And I love that, because we just don't get the opportunity to do projects like this now. Most other people would say, lose the fuel filler, it's not original. Fit bumpers because it should have bumpers. Put the engine back to correct spec, remove the braces, all the stuff that's been done to this car to make it racy. But we're going completely opposite direction. We're going a slightly modern paint job. We're going a different interior that's 250 GTO inspired. We're manufacturing the parts and assembling a 250
Is it going to
GTO.
look good though, James?
Huh?
Is it going to look good though, James?
It's going to look amazing. I don't know if everyone else can hear you talking to me, but it's going to look amazing. It's going to look amazing, and I love it. And it's going to be to absolutely the spec that Mr. H wants. And it's going to be racy, but it's going to be right for the road. It's going to be noisy, but not too noisy. It's going to be Larry, but not too Larry. It's going to be the competition Lusso, or the semi-competition Lusso, that they never built. So we're just about to get the engine out.
Oh, I thought you took it out the other day when we were speaking.
No, it's not out yet, but you can see the radiators out and all the plumbing. With the COVID, it's very difficult at the moment because we've got such a slim number of staff that we have to sort of jump between jobs. But it's coming out, and then this is going to the body shop next week, and then we're going to have to talk about what we're doing under here, but we'll come back to that. Anyway, this is for all the other guys, so we'll come back to that. But that is a great project. Really excited to get that done because I think it's going to be
I can't wait to see it for Brunei.
Going to be great. Going to be great. That colour is nice, but we're going something different. We're going something different. It's very.
I think a lot of people know what colour I'm changing it to anyway.
I think it's great. Another F40 here, which we are doing a top-end rebuild of the engine. I think it blew a head gasket, so this is being done by one of the guys that's not in at the moment because of the situation, so that's sort of been on hold, but you'll all see lots of F40s here. 430, we are very big into the big cars, but of course we look after, the more regular Ferraris, and every client is as important to us as the other because the labour rate doesn't change per client or for the car in question. So they are very important to us. This is quite a special car that's come from a huge collection that many of you will know about, but I'm not really allowed to talk about. And it hadn't run for many years, and it's right-hand drive and very low mileage. And we've just done a big recommissioning on that. It's had a huge amount spent on it. Very cool. Little mini pickup that we bought for a client in Hong Kong from an auction recently. Carrera GT that was sold by Edward Lovett to the current owner. We do quite a bit with Edward to help him out. So a few deals with him. And so the car's come here for an MOT so that we can register it. But it's just been repainted at the factory for the owner, who's got a thing for blue cars, who can blame him. And yeah, it looks stunning. Really, really, really great color combination. And it's to match his 918. So full marks for that. We approve of that. Well done, guys. This is something that you'll see a little bit about in the next few weeks. So I won't dwell on that right now, but it is a G-Wagon. That's all you need to know, really. Nice Daytona. And just here, believe it or not, this is the rear end for the GT1 that we sold just before Christmas, which we're doing, again, a major overhaul on. So we're doing a partial retrim and rebuilding the engine, all that sort of stuff, because those sorts of cars haven't had proper maintenance over the years. Very early, short nose D-type, effectively a prototype, and an ex-works car driven by all the greats, Moss, Hawthorne. Super, super special car, very, very valuable that we're doing. We've picked up the restoration from someone else that they started, and we are going to be cracking on with that this year. Really special car, great history. And actually, we've looked at, I think there are 4 of them. We've looked at 3 others of the cars, or sorry, there are 5 of them. One of them slightly dubious. We've looked at the other 3, and we have come to realize that this is actually, in our opinion, the most original and best condition one, albeit needing restoration because it's had a very hard and active life. Up on the ramp here, this is a Dino that's just returned from the body shop. It's a Flares from new Dino, which is very sought after, right-hand drive as well. We'll be bolting that together now. Everything's restored and ready to go back on it, so we'll be doing that going forwards. And just for those that are into sort of the technical side of things, here's a glimpse of our fabrication shop. So through here and through there, we've got our dirty room, effectively. So this is where, well, dirty room's a bit ironic because it's pretty clean, but this is where all the dirty stuff goes on and the fabrication, the welding and that sort of stuff. This is our engine shop, which we have actually just moved from elsewhere on the site. So many of you will remember that our engine shop used to be up by the showroom, but we've moved it during this period because we wanted to get everything back in-house. As Harvey mentioned, we also have an engine shop up at Mallory Park. So this is the engine for the F40 GT. So that's fresh, ready to go back in the car. This is a 212 engine from a 50s car that we're in the middle of restoring, which the bodywork's away at the body shop at the moment. And then, yeah, something that I know that all of you will probably remember from trips to Le Mans, the Colin McRae 550, which is just the coolest modern racing car. I'm sure most of you went to watch this race. Amazing story behind these cars. Frederick Dorr, a very wealthy Swiss client of ProDrive, went to Ferrari and said, I would like you to build me a V12 front-engine race car. You remember the Daytona we looked at in the showroom earlier? That was the last front-engine V12 Ferrari to go to Le Mans. GT car to go to Ferrari and win its class. Ferrari said, great idea, but we think you're mad, but you've got our seal of approval, but we won't do it for you. So he went to ProDrive because he'd done a lot of rallying with Imprezas. And ProDrive built 10 of these cars. This is the third one built. And believe it or not, Frederick Dorr had a 550 Maranello road car from new. So when they built the first two cars, and in the first season they were very successful, they said, we need another donor car. And he just gave them the keys to his 550 Maranello and said, here's the third donor. So this is the car that was his personal car from new, built into a racing car, raced at Le Mans 5 times. 5 times is more times than any other Ferrari in existence. So this Ferrari has raced at Le Mans more times than any other car in existence. One of those times in 2004 was famously Colin McRae was the driver with Darren Turner and Ricard Brydel. And the last time it ran at Le Mans, it was driven by none other than Frederick Dorr, which is great because the guy that funded the whole 550 project and later the Aston Martin racing project for ProDrive. This was his personal car from new. This is the car that he gave to them to turn into a race car and race at Le Mans more times than any other car. And he drove it himself at Le Mans. And many of you would have seen this at the Silverstone Classic last year, and we raced it at a number of events. And that's a very, very special car. Then something else that people don't get to see very often, but we're in the middle of doing is, and I apologize for the trolley, that's not ours. The Italians sent it back on a trolley that wasn't ours, but it's just been to Italy to have a bit of chassis work done to it. But this is an F40, believe it or not. And this is an F40 that we're doing a full restoration on. The idea was to actually sort of, not sort of wanting to do what Singer do, but do something along those lines of make an F40 that is better for the road, so just slightly more manageable, perhaps ceramic brakes within the original wheels, perhaps a slightly more comfortable interior, different things like that, better lights, you know, just the little things and just to slightly improve it. But again, because of the situation, we've just got it back and it's on hold until we've got our full workforce back. But a really exciting project and excited to sort of discuss it with people and see what they think. But you know, it could go one of two ways. We could just restore it to standard, which will be fine, or we could take the you know, the fact that it needed restoring because it did have a bit of a fire to do something a bit more interesting. But we'll see. We'll decide. Another engine over there that's about to go out, having been fully rebuilt. So there we are. So that's our workshop facilities. I think Harvey should be ready for us. Are you there, Harvey?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. Over to you.
Hi. Welcome back. So since I last spoke to you, I've travelled not too far, 4 or 5 miles to our storage facility here. And this is something that I was talking to Adam and James and I were talking to Adam and the guys about doing an event here, because we've never held an event here, but there's so much great stuff to see. We've sort of been thinking and sort of trying to work out a way to show you guys this facility without breaching security. And it turns out this is the way to do it. So let me turn the camera around. So we took on this facility, it feels like yesterday, but I think 5 or 6 years ago. We'd always had storage, but we'd had it in different facilities and often spread around. And so we've now got this facility, which enables us to have, at the minute, about 160 cars in one place. It's full, so it didn't last long enough, and we need somewhere new. But this is it. I can't show you every car because, well, you'd be here all day. and clearly I need to be a little bit more discreet than that. But what I will do, and I might pull a few covers off as we go and give you a few clues, but you can probably see from the wheel what that might be. And you might be able to tell from the badge what this might be. In fact, this is a famous car. This is a bit of a mammoth. This Rolls Royce was Princess Grace's wedding car. So, still wearing its monogas plates. This was a royal wedding car used in Monaco in the 1960s, and lives in a collection in America, in Reno, Nevada. And the lady that owns the collection sent a few cars to us because she likes to do shows and concours and events, and she wanted to do some in Europe. So she sent a few cars over, and we've been very happy to look after them for her and help her show those cars whilst they've been in Europe. Here we've got two cars the same. James mentioned that there were 10 550 Pro drives built. We've got one at the workshop, and under the cover here is something similar. And here's a third car as well. So very happy to be able to help look after those cars and be a part of that story in as much as we can. Under here, we've got nice E-Type. The store has a lot of uses for us, and the clients that we have that store cars here are a real mixture. Some of these cars belong to guys that live on the other side of the world. Perhaps they live in Hong Kong or they live in Singapore, and they have car collections, and they don't necessarily want to have their cars in Hong Kong or Singapore, maybe because the temperature's not right, the climate's not right, maybe because the tax to import the cars is too high, or maybe because actually it makes more sense to have a collection of cars in Europe to drive on European road trips and to enjoy in England and to take to the events that we have over here. So some cars, well, we've already looked at the Rolls Royce that owner lives in America. Some of the other stuff, a lot of it, Middle East or Far East. And some cars, like the E-Type, belong to people that live 30 miles away, but might live in central London. This gentleman, for example, does live in central London. He has secure garaging for 2 cars, but he has more than 2 cars. He has 4 or 5 or 6. So he has a space with us and a rotation. So, when he's had one of the cars at home for 2 months, on a given Saturday, he might drive up, have a nice drive out of town in one of the cars, and then have another one at home for another period. And that clearly works well for those guys. So I think it's interesting that we've got a real variety of cars and variety of owners in here. Here's a car that, another special car. This Challenge Stradale is, well, clearly silver, which is unusual in itself, but was also Jean Todd's. So it was built for Jean Todt when he was at Ferrari. Funnily enough, around the same time that he was talking to Frederick Dorr about not running his 550 race cars, because at the time that was before his FIA days when he was still at Ferrari. Yeah, this is a lovely car. I think Challenge Stradales are something that I've always adored. I really like the shape, and I really like, what they're about. Very raw, very purposeful, very noisy. Great things. When we moved into this building, we didn't have the ramps. It was just a warehouse space. And in that formation, it could take about 60 cars packed in. Once we filled that up, we realized we needed to do something different, which is where the ramps came in. So we're 2 deep, which means we're 4 deep because of height on both sides down here. And then a bit later on, we needed some more space, so we went up again. Another cool car, another very famous car. This is the Aston from the Persuaders, so that's with us. It's been with us a few months now, and surely will be with us a few months longer. But that's a nice thing, and another example of the variety that we've got in here. I think we've got variety in the workshop and in the showrooms, but we've really got something and everything in here. Behind this, and I don't know if I have enough signal to go too far under this metalwork, but in here is another really special car that we're looking after. That is a 4.5 litre Bentley blower. So the ultimate pre-war car, the ultimate Bentley. Better still, this car has unique bodywork. And that's because it was bought by Wolf Bonato, who was the Bentley boy, you know, the original Le Mans Bentley racer. And this car was bought for his wife. So that's why it has this really interesting and really intricate bodywork. And again, this is a car that we're looking after. It's a car that's been shown and that we've helped show. And I think this will return to its home overseas when the sort of showing season is over, and it'll be sad to see the back of it because it's been really lovely having it here. Lovely 512 BB car that we bought that from the owner about 6 or 7 years ago, then took on a restoration and then sold again a couple of years ago. And I'm really happy that often when we sell cars like that, they stay in our care and stay in the stores. They almost become part of the family, all these cars that are here. Not everything in here is ready to go. This is a bit of an ongoing project that we're sort of about to start, but not quite there yet. So that's the body, and the rest of the car is also in here somewhere else. All shapes and sizes. That's a 90s Bentley, a Continental. Astons and Ferraris, GTC, DB5, Lotus Exige, which I know that one of the guys on this call used to be the previous owner of that car. So hello, Matthew. As I say, I'd love to whip the covers off everything, but we would be here all day. Speedster, and you can probably see back there. That's interesting, actually. Got another BB, and then a 308 behind that, and then I can just about make out a Cosworth beyond that. So it really is all shapes and sizes. Right, I'm now going to go up, because after we filled up the space with the ramps, we realised we needed yet more space. So we went up and built a mezzanine. And this is the mezzanine. So as I said, we filled this up as well. And we filled this up with a lot of examples of one car. So this is, yeah, this is some of the F40s we look after. There's a few more at the end. So yeah, we really do live and breathe F40s, and I think it's certainly my favourite car. It's almost certainly James's favourite car, and it's lovely to have so many that stay with us. It's also one of those cars that, unlike some of the other stuff we've looked at, 812s, for example, or GT3 RSs that you'd really want to have at home all year round. Actually, I think a lot of people take a lot of happiness and a lot of pride in knowing that their F40's here, it's well looked after, and when they want to use it, they can take it out. They know it'll be fueled up, it'll be clean, it'll be ready to go. And I think the other thing with an F40 is you don't need to do monster mileage in these cars to have a huge grin on your face. You know, a lot of people use their F40s, you know, once a month in the summer months. Maybe they go to a few trips or a few events. So to have them here, they know they're well looked after. As I say, they know that when they need servicing, they're here. And of course, all these cars are serviced, and they are serviced by us. So if you've got your F40 here and you know it needs tanked, it's no more than a phone call. You don't have to organise getting the car to us. It's here. It's all looked after. And we love having these cars here. I think the Charger gives away probably what this is. Got a few. I think we've probably got one of everything in here. We've certainly got 288s, F50s, Enzos, clearly. LaFerraris as well. There's one. There's another one hiding under there. You can probably tell from the fuel flap it's a more ordinary colour. And And I think when I hand you back over to James, I'll uncover one of these F40s that we can have a really good look round. This is our plenty of speciales, plenty of 599 GTOs. We've sold a lot of speciales and a lot of GTOs. That's a speciale Aperta. This is a GTO. Another speciale. You can tell by the wheels that gold speciale wheels are very popular. F12 TDF. Another speciale. And an Enzo beyond that. Another GTO. So Lamborghini. Oh, this is something special. We'll try and sneak round and have a look at this as well. Something that you probably won't see again. Another 599 under here. This one's an Aperta. Now this is cool. This is from the front. It's a Testarossa. Well, there's plenty of those, and we've seen one of those already today. But from the back, it's not. It's something else. And this was built, as the number plate will tell you, that you can't see the number plate because of where it is. But this is the Testarossa Spider, and it was built for Gianni Agnelli. It was a one-off at the time. There it is. That is something. So this is a car that we look after. And again, the owner's done a few shows with this car. For Ferrari's 70th, they had a big Concours event in Maranello, and he won that event with this car. Yeah, it's a really, really special thing and totally striking. Another example that all Ferraris shouldn't always be red. But that's, yeah, you're right, Koenig, there are quite a few like Daytonas. There are a few cars that have been converted and chopped, but this was the one that was done by Ferrari for Agnelli, for their owner, for the guy who was, at the time in Italy, single-handedly responsible for something like 30% of GDP. And that's the original number plate he had. Torino, because the end of Turin, 00006. Another amazing fact about this car is he was quite old at the time, so he struggled with the clutch. So it's not fitted now, but it had a switchable gearbox system. So it could be a manual or it could be an automatic. It was switchable, which is quite amazing. You see some of the other cars downstairs. I'll quickly walk you around and see if James is ready to take over.
I'm ready.
Finish up here. GTOs, motorbikes, pistas. We got a lot of cars delivered here new as well. So a lot of guys clearly are quite busy, and you know, once you've taken delivery of your first Ferrari, perhaps when you take delivery of your next car and you're away on business or you've got other things going on, actually it can be an inconvenience to go and collect your car. Clearly you've got to find a way to get there and bring it back. So a lot of cars that live in storage with us actually are delivered here to us new, and then the owners can take delivery when they're ready, but they know that they're safe, they know they're looked after, and they know they're in good hands. Yellow F50, another GTO beyond this Enzo, red Enzo. And then we'll finish up over here. Porsches, 911R, GT2 RS, paint to sample Speedster, which I think is absolutely lovely, wonderful colour. 4-litre RS, distinctive by its white wheels. 3 more F40s, and these are 3 cars that are, well, 2 of which are quietly for sale. You know, again, we don't advertise every car. We don't need to advertise every car, and for certain cars and certain owners, it suits the situation better to perhaps not be advertised. This is a very, very special one, a car that we bought from the first owner, in fact, the daughter of the first owner, who was a close friend of Enzo Ferrari, and he, with his company, built carbon fiber and fiberglass bodies. And actually, he became a friend of Enzo's and became a supplier to Enzo, building bodies for the race cars, so the Formula One cars and the sports cars, and then became the supplier of every body panel on every F40. So his small company based just outside Modena built the body panels for every F40, and as a result, he had an F40. And this was his car. He kept it at home. I visited his house twice, once to look at the car and once to collect it. And the car was like an extension of his life. I've never seen a car that was better cared for. It had newspaper stuffed up the exhaust pipes to keep it all clean and in perfect order. Sadly, he passed away, and the car ended up in the hands of his daughter. And it was his daughter that we bought the car from. But a really, really, really special piece of F40 history. When I looked at the car when it was at his daughter's house, I commented on the gear knob. And an F40 gear knob is stainless steel, and a F50 gear knob is carbon like this. And I said to the daughter, I said, "What a shame! You know, where's the original gear knob? Why did you put a gear knob on from an F50?" And she told me that, of course, her father built all the body panels for the F50s and the gear knobs for the F50s. So for him, his car had an F50 gear knob, which is quite cool and quite touching. I think that brings us to about a close up here, as much as we can do. Yep. So I'll hand you back to James.
Thanks, Harvey. So guys, I am here in one of our last showrooms, which has mainly sort of the blue chip stock, as you would see it on our website, in terms of racing cars and the higher value cars. And it also has my father's personal collection joined onto it, which we will have a sneak peek at in a minute. Not everything's there, but there's some good cars. So it looks very much like the showroom at the main office. It is very similar. And I'll quickly start with the Atlanta then. So this is an Atalanta, which was, they built less than 40 cars just in Staines just before the Second World War. And they're really sought after pre-war cars. But this is actually a modern interpretation. So someone bought the rights to the name Atalanta a few years ago. And they built 3 of these, 1 prototype and 2 production cars. Unfortunately, he had some personal issues and has not been able to continue with the project, which makes these really rare indeed. It's got a modern Ford engine, disc brakes, lots of sort of modern features, but a classic design. So a really cool thing. Currently for sale on the website, of course. £125,000 plus VAT, but British built, brand new, extremely special. And this one is called the Bluebird because the Campbells had one in their family, and the Campbell family have authorised this car to be painted Bluebird blue. So special car. Then here we've got this 250 long wheelbase chassis. So many people, well, not many people get to see the underneath of a 50s Ferrari, but this is what they look like. And actually, whilst it looks a bit rudimentary, this is incredibly complex in comparison to other chassis of the 50s. This is why Ferrari was so good. They were strong drivetrains, really strong, reliable engine with good power and a rugged chassis and suspension. So, you know, in the 50s, Le Mans was still sort of almost on a rough road surface. The cars would last the distance. Cars like Lotus, they would brake. They were fast, they were light, they were nimble, but they didn't have reliability. Ferrari had the reliability. In the 50s, for the motor shows, Ferrari had a rolling chassis like this for their shows. And when the Design Museum had Ferrari under the skin a few years ago, that exhibition that was set up by Roald Stern, we put this together. You know, this is all original parts. So it's a genuine Ferrari chassis, genuine Ferrari engine and gearbox, genuine fuel tank. The radiator is new, but the rest of it's all genuine parts. And we put it together so that people could see what a 50s Ferrari looks like underneath. And this eventually will be a California Spider. Originally, it was a Buono or an Eleanor, which is a 250 GT Ferrari from the 50s, which is not particularly attractive, but it was very rusty, and we took the body off a long time ago. And not many people realize, but a TDF, a Cal Spider, a Buono, an Eleanor, a Pininfarina Coupe, mechanically they're identical. They're just safe some minor changes. It's the bodies that are different. So an Eleanor or Buono is worth between £500,000 and £1 million. And obviously a California Spider is a $10 million plus car. So just by simply rebodying this, we can give it a new lease of life. It won't be as valuable as a factory California Spider, but probably will be a bit more loved. So that's an exciting project, but that's one of our own that we'll get around to when we have time, which seems like never. Little MGA, ex-works car, raced at Sebring in the 60s, in totally original condition because it was put away after the race for 35 years plus, and then about 20 years ago was extracted from storage and mechanically restored, but it's totally solid and correct. And that's a great car for, again, events and perhaps racing at Goodwood or just using on the road, but really charming and original. We've got a replica GT40, but not a replica in terms of, you know, it looks the part, but underneath isn't quite the part. This is a 99.9% perfect copy of an original GT40, eligible for the Goodwood members meeting, Spa 6 Hours. Again, if you look on YouTube, we've got a great Spa 6 Hours video about racing a GT40 at Spa. And it's on the button, very well priced. If that's the sort of stuff you want to do, you can. It's got a UK V5, so it can be driven on the road. It's a cool proposition, priced at £295,000. It's also good value considering what you can do with it. And if you wanted to have a new one built for you to this spec, you'd be looking at probably, including the VAT, £375,000. And then you'd have to do all the snagging and all that sort of stuff that goes with having a new race car. That car's ready to go, so great opportunity. Stunning 288 GTO, car that we've had 3 times in the past. Bought it in America originally. All 288 GTOs were European specification. They're all the same. This car went to Italy when it was about 5 years old, I think. Remarkable condition, considering that it's slightly high mileage for a 288 GTO at 30,000 miles. But most of that mileage was done in California, which of course is very dry and kind. And it's in great condition. And we've looked after it for the last 4 years. It's got AC, it's the full leather specification interior. It's Class K certified. I mean, if I went to look at this and someone had changed the speedo and it said 10,000 kilometers, I believe them because it's so nice. And that's currently advertised on our website at £2,050,000. Obviously, they've seen a huge rise in value over the last 10 years, but why not? You know, that is the original supercar, the original twin turbocharged supercar Ferrari. They only built officially 272, although we've got 285 in our database in true Ferrari style. But great car, really, really good car. And if anyone wants that sort of happy balance between historic and modern Ferrari, that's the 288 GTO. That's as modern as my father will go. He sees that as a modern car still, although it's over 30 years old now, well over 30 years old. But a car that can truly do everything really well. Great profile tires. So on a B road, that's just the best car for having a B road blast on. It's so nice. Just moving on to this Cobra. This is a 289 Cobra with period competition history. So it's one of only, I forget the number now, but let's say 20 cars that are in the register as having period competition history, which is really important if you want to go and do, say, the Goodwood Revival and do the TT. You need a car that raced in period and is acknowledged as racing in period. So that's the car to do it with. We've sold that last year to someone who is going to do just that, hopefully this year. Koenigsegg CCR, one of the very, very first cars built by Koenigsegg. I think Koenigsegg, the way they're really, really interesting brand. I think Christian is just thinking outside the box with regards to everything. Now, these cars being early, they are a little bit more basic and prototypey, but it's still a full carbon tub. The seats have got memory foam. It's I forget the exact figure, but it's with the Evo pack that's on this car, it's like 850 or 900 horsepower. I mean, as a collectible going forwards, with the values of modern Koenigsegg's being where they are, and looking what's happened with the Pagani brand, that's a really interesting place to put some money. I'm not, advising people to invest in cars, but I think that's a really interesting car. Very few of them built on our website at the moment, as you will see, very well priced. Little Dino 246L series, that's just sold this week, so that's going to a new home. 275 GTB short nose, another one, but you'll see this time it doesn't have any bumpers. That's because this car raced in period. Only one race, but but it did race in period. That's not on the website at the moment, but is for sale. Nice car. Great interior color actually on this. You know, we've talked about color combination so many times now, but look at that. That's very brave, but really works color combination. A 212 Inter, beautifully restored in New Zealand. A four-seater as well, very easy to drive, priced at £1 million for a 50s Ferrari that's potentially Media Media eligible. Interesting car. This is a car that's very much not for sale, belongs to a collection that we've helped build over the years, a very, very good collection, which you'll see a little bit more of in a minute. This is the ex-Ron Fry 250 LM, so delivered new to the UK. He was out in this car, when you look at the race history, every weekend for 2 years. He had a 250 GTO before this. Of course, the 250 LM was built to supersede and replace the 250 GTO, and of course is a better car fundamentally. Fabulous, fabulous car, great history, very original car. Out of the 32 250 LMs, there's only about 7 or so that you would classify as no question marks, i.e. all original, matching numbers, original body, etc., etc. This is one of those 7. We bought this for the owner at auction in America in 2015, I think. And then it came back to the UK, had one of our world-leading top quality restorations. It's a 2-man job to open the back, I'm afraid, but you'll have to take my word for it. The car is absolutely perfect and is just utterly gorgeous. And importantly, detail there are quite a few, there are not many people out there that have restored an LM to absolute detail perfection, which we have on this car, right down to, and this is really nerdy, but the grille, the layout of the grille, that mesh, we had to have that laser cut to get it right, because normally people just say, oh, I can't find it, and go with something that's quite close. That's how it was supposed to be. So that's a fabulous car. Really, really fond of that one. So just looking at some of Mum and Dad's cars, because it's always quite nice to sort of see behind closed doors what you know the companies you're dealing with do and like to do in their free time. Well, we're car guys. Mum and Dad founded this business because they love cars. And this is our factory competition Daytona, which is ex-Security Francorchamps, ran up the Spa 1,000 kilometers, and Le Mans in 1973. It's the last one built, 450 horsepower from the factory, Series 3 car. Never restored. We've actually had this car in storage with us since the early 90s. We bought it about 4 years ago, and we've mechanically restored it, but we haven't cosmetically restored it. So it's got warts and all. Real patina. And I did a rally with this with my father 2 years ago in Italy. We had a great time, and I did it with my fiance last year, and we still got married afterwards. So we're still getting on at the end of it, which was a bit of a make or break rally. It's a true test for us, and it worked out very well. One of Mum's cars here is this 327 BMW, which is 1930s built BMW. Of course, you know, she is the K and DK, so Kate has a love of cars as well, and this is her BMW, which she loves. Slightly strange collection of Austin 7s, but that is where Dad started. And when he was 16, he borrowed some money to buy an Austin 7 and strip it in his garden for parts. And on the left there, that is a top hat saloon, which is exactly like the first Austin 7 that he had. Ooh, sorry, guys. So that is exactly like the first Austin 7 that he had there. And then when he was 16, this was the Austin 7 that everyone wanted, which is a Type 65 Nippy. They're worth about £30,000, but in true David Cottingham style, he spent, I think, upwards of £80,000 restoring it. So it was better than any other Austin 7 in existence. But why not? Because that was his dream when he was in his teens, and today he has it. A little Mark I Jaguar. This was owned by Mike Hawthorne's butcher. And Mike Hawthorne, as you will probably know, was killed in a Mark I Jaguar. And as a result, and it was sold to him by Mike Hawthorne as well. And as a result, he used the car very, very sparingly for the rest of his ownership. And it went via a friend of Dad's to Dad about 10 years ago. I can't remember the exact mileage, but it's really low, like 15,000 miles as a result. So nice story. You know, Mike Hawthorne, if you haven't seen the film Race to Immortality, which is about the Ferrari works drivers from the 50s, an incredible film. I challenge you not to cry. And yeah, great story. Mike Hawthorne, real hero. Quite a cool link there. DB4 GT, which is a car that my brother's company, Jeremy Cottingham Historics, has for sale at the moment, which we're storing for him. An original right drive DB4 GT with rear seats, which is very rare. AC Ace, which Dad, still in his late 70s, likes to get out racing. And he does a lot with this and has driven it with Simon, who we were talking to at the start of this. And then the family Testarossa. So we've had this in the family since the late 70s. I've been privileged to have been allowed to race this car from my early 20s onwards, or my mid 20s onwards. Raced it at Goodwood a number of times, won the All Ferrari race, the Levant Cup, 3 or 4 years ago. Dad's done over 100 races in this car. And it's certainly one that will always be in the family no matter what. And is just, I think, the prettiest Ferrari ever made. I would think that, but it really is. And a lot of people agree. And that car was first in class at Le Mans 1957, 7th overall, and the first non-English car to finish the race that year. So that was at the time when Jaguar and the likes of Lister were very competitive. And that's the car. And it's, of course, in yellow and black because that's the Belgian colours of the Curie Francorchamps, who we talked about earlier on. So that's enough from me in here. We're going to flick back to Harvey, who's going to give you a walk around one of the cars in the store. And then I'll see you at the end.
Here we are. I thought the car to pick would be an F40, but I wasn't sure which one. So I thought we'd go for the one that was a little bit different. So it's not that one. It's not this one. It's not that one. It's not that one. But it is this one. So I think the most obvious difference is quite recognizable. And that's that it's not red. And it was never red. The other really obvious and really critical difference is that unlike all the other cars that you will almost ever see, the steering wheel is on the other hand side. So this is one of the 7 famous right-hand drive F40s that was built for the Sultan of Brunei. They were done by Pininfarina, so no one really knows exactly what happened, but the cars in theory were rolled out of the factory door straight to Pininfarina and straight into conversion to right-hand drive. We're pretty certain, and it's pretty well known, that he had 7 cars in right-hand drive. They were all different colours. And of those 7, it's pretty sure that 5 are still with him. One of them is here, and the other one is in Italy. And this is the spec he had this car. And clearly, when a man has 7 F40s, you need to start thinking outside the box with regards to colours. He had 288 GTOs as well. He had 4 of those, one of which we sold a little while ago. The other 3 he still has. And the GTO was, you know, GTOs are red with a black pinstripe. His GTO was black with a red pinstripe. And he's done a similar thing here. Obviously, he's changed this colour for this matte grey. And where the black pinstripe is on a red car, clearly he's changed it to red, which I think is really cool and very quirky, very, very different. He had the car for, it's very hard to know, but something like 10 years. It was in either the late 90s or the early 2000s when the car came out of Brunei and came to the UK. And amazingly, back then, this unbelievable car combination wasn't quite so well received. So the car was painted red, sort of to look like all the other cars. So last year we did a restoration on the car for the current owner. It's not for sale, sadly, but for the current owner we did a restoration and took the car back to its Brunei spec. I think it's just amazing. It's just, you never get bored of looking at F40s in red, but when you see this car, it really makes you double take, and it really, really takes your breath away. There's a few other interesting features about it. It's got a straight through sports exhaust. I definitely can't lift the back up while holding the phone in the other hand, so I can't show you properly. I'll show you inside as well. So it's got seats like an F40 LM, electric windows. You see the switches there in the middle. A fabulous thing. Yes, we can take these cars back to carbon when we repaint them, so you're not just throwing more paint on top of previous material. Yeah, we can take them back. It is a very involving process, but it does mean, and I don't think my phone will pick it up, but it does mean, maybe I can, we can get weave back into the paintwork as well. Very, very difficult, but with enough time and with the right approach, it is possible to get those jobs right. I hope it's coming across as well on camera as it is to me with the naked eye. The way the light plays off this semi-opaque colour is really, really cool, and a pleasure to show you guys this. I hope you've enjoyed looking around the store and looking around the showrooms with me this morning as much as I have. I'm certainly glad that I got to leave the house and come and look at these cars. I've certainly been missing them from my home office, and I really look forward to meeting you guys soon when we can host you properly and host you in person. But until then, I'll hand you back to James, who hopefully is in place. Somebody asked about the Lambo. It's an Aventador SV. I'll hand you back to James if he's ready. Are you ready, James?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So I'm here in our last room, which many of you asked me about when on the phone to me or whatever, because it was seen in Sam Fain's Seen Through Glass video. But this is a secret location where we store quite an interesting collection of cars. Some of them ours, some of them not. But you'll see, this is always the one that gets everyone, obviously, the McLaren. But we'll come back to that. So first up, we've got this Daytona, which is for sale on our website at the moment. Generally, we don't have sales cars in here, but this one has sneaked in because it's so good. As Tom Hartley Jr. keeps saying on lots of our social media posts, we missed out one famous owner. Yes, this is the ex-Tom Hartley Jr. Daytona, which, you know, I don't blame him. It is a great car, fabulous history. David Boland, he showed the car all over the country, won lots of trophies, amazing history files, fully documented from you, which is just really difficult to find for those cars. Yeah, great car. Then in here, over here, sorry, we have another short nose 275, one from Dad's collection. This is a right-hand drive car with 50-something thousand miles from new and just 3 owners from new. It has been repainted, it has been partially restored, but it retains its original interior. It's, again, got a file like the Daytona, like you wouldn't believe. This has got to be one of the nicest short nose 275s. And believe me, he's had the choice of them. He's had, I think, 4 or 5 short nose 275s over the years, but this is the one that he's kept. And he's kept it for a long time and loves and enjoys that car. Has done lots of rallies with it. Again, another car of Dad's, a 365 GTC, so a right-hand drive 365 GTC. In terms of a gentleman's choice of 60s Ferrari, these are great cars. Not hugely expensive, you know, less than £1 million, somewhere, depending on the condition of, somewhere between 600 and 1 million. This car's, again, had one of his full restorations. It's had more money spent on it than it's, plus the purchase price, than it's actually worth today, which is the only way that he does things. He will not leave any stone unturned. And there are only 21 of these in right-hand drive. And they're a great car. Again, like the same chassis as a 275. It's a very good chassis, all independent suspension, disc brakes all around, 5-speed gearbox, but 365cc per cylinder. So, you know, it's 4.4 litre, I think that is. Great torque, great power, lovely car, comfortable place to be. Yeah, love those. Then this is a car that we restored amazingly in 2002. So 18 years ago, and then was sold to a client in Holland who did a number of events with it, drove it, etc., etc. And then we bought it back from him 18 months to 2 years ago. It's a 166 Mille Miglia, so like the Le Mans car we saw. Beautiful details. It's the only 166 bodied by Pininfarina, which of course was such a famous brand associated with Ferrari over the years. Very basic, you know, this is a true racing car. Look at all the holes that have been drilled to save weight, minimal gauges.
just a bit of rubber on the floor, nothing else, no interior. True race car. And we sold this to some lovely guys last year who have bought quite a few cars from us and have been very loyal. And they did the Mille Miglia in it and had a great time with it because it's, you know, it's just the perfect tool for the job. And a very pretty car. So we've refreshed it after the Mille Miglia. That's ready for the next event. A few engines here. That's the engine for the D-Type that you saw in the workshop. That's the engine and gearbox to the Dino that you saw in the workshop. That's the spare 250 engine that we've built up that belongs to a Pininfarina Cabriolet that is not with it. It doesn't have its engine at the moment. A Jaguar engine of some sort. Can't remember what that's from. That's from a 250 Lusso that also has non-matching numbers at the moment. And a spare 575 GTC engine, which I'm just hoping someone will buy this to put it into some sort of hot rod. With some Motec ignition, that could be a seriously cool thing. Maybe a modern interpretation of a 50 Sports Ferrari, like something that looks like a 250 Testarossa, but with a modern engine. It would fit in the Morris Minor if you made the modifications. It'll fit in anything, I promise you. Right, so moving on to these guys. So these cars all have a great story, but this particular one here is a car that's quite well known. Many of you will have seen it for well, not for sale at the moment, but alongside the F12 TDF that's on our website at the moment. This car is the first 14 Louvre 250 Tour de France. In my opinion, the first Tour de France ever built. There's a bit of an argument over when that name was first used. And this was owned by Tony Paravano when it was new. He raced it, then he went missing in America for ROS reasons. It was bought by Walt Disney, and the car featured in Herbie the Love Bug. So Herbie falls in love with another car. This is the car that was driven by the baddie that Herbie the Love Bug falls in love with. So it's a very famous car, and was later sold to one of the producers at Disney, and was the engine was broken and it was started to be restored. It was pulled apart, but packed in boxes and not restored until the early 90s. So from the 70s to the 90s, when again Dad bought this car, he fully restored it for himself, raced it, concours, showed it, and eventually, in order to pay some school fees, which I put my hands up to, I'm sorry, Dad, he sold it, and the car went to America. Years later, I think it was about $600,000 back then. Years later, it came to auction and was sold for $6 million in about 2007, 2008. A few years later, we bought it for a client, and we totally restored it for those lovely clients who, again, are very loyal and do a lot with us. And we now look after the car here, and every now and again, we will have a weekend where the owners come over and go for a drive with us in the car and enjoy it. But again, you know, a car like this that's as special as this, it's not the easiest thing to, well, I mean, you can, but it's not the easiest thing to sort of store and maintain in your garage, especially if it hasn't been run for a while. You know, you need to really know what you're doing when you fire it into life. So I think from a safety point of view, this is a great place for the car to live. 250 short wheelbase CFAC hot rod. So in terms of 250 short wheelbases, this is as good as they get. This is, you know, one step down from a 250 GTO. Again, a car that we've known for a long time. We restored this originally in the 90s. It was owned by a lovely Iranian client of ours who, at the time when he bought this, I think he was 24 years old. Of course, the values are very different then, but he was someone that really appreciated what this was. And today he's very well known for possibly one of the best collections of Rolex watches in the world. He sadly no longer has cars, but we restored this for him. And years later, it came into a collection of a client. And again, we look after this car here. A 250 short wheelbase California Spider with covered headlights. That's again the ultimate specification of convertible Ferrari from this. That's what everyone wants. That's a very valuable car. And again, another car that we've restored in-house totally, finishing it 3 years ago or so. And then finally, the McLaren F1. Chassis 31, we sold it in 2018 to the current owner. And it's one of only 2 cars that left the factory in white. It lived for a long time in Japan and is very low mileage. I think it's approximately 2,000 kilometers from new. It's used, but just probably not enough at the moment. The owner of this car is very, very busy with business. But the ultimate plan is when he is finished and ready to wind down from work, that he will get out and enjoy that car. I'm sure we'll do a tour or two in that at some point. But the important thing is having it in the first place so that you've got the opportunity to use it going forwards. So there we go, guys. That's pretty much it. I think we can do a Q&A session if you guys want to. If you've got any questions or if you want me to look at the chat, I can do that. Does anyone have any fresh questions? And thank you everyone for taking your time, and sorry about the technical issues at the start.
Superb effort, James. Well, what fun. Thanks for taking us around.
No problem. Pleasure, guys. Did anyone have any direct questions? Let's have a look. How much is your annual insurance? A lot.
James, what was the first Ferrari you drove?
The first Ferrari I drove was the 275 GTB. It was a short nose originally, but had a long nose put on it in 1966 in South Africa, and Dad had it, and he had it in tour spec, and I drove it at Silverstone for the first time. So the first Ferrari I drove was actually on the track. But Tom Hartley Jr., funnily enough, restored and put back to a short nose in silver grey recently. That is the first Ferrari I ever drove, and it was on a track.
Oh, fantastic. Your dad will remember, but it was before your time. Hamish Moffat used to tow a Bugatti with a 275, and that was the first Ferrari I drove. I'll try and find the registration number because I bet you know where that car is.
It was recently sold. It's just gone to New Zealand. And that car had a tow bar on it and a Webasto sunroof. And you know that car, yeah, he had a very bad accident in that car and was left trapped in the car, I think, for sort of 6 hours or something in Wales, but survived it, of course, and carried on racing. But that's a good car, good story. I'd love for someone to restore it with a Webasto sunroof and a tow bar again to tow the gas. It'd be great.
KPJ was the reg. Would that have been an early two-cam car?
It's the same as Dad's, yeah. So it's a right-hand drive short nose.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a long time ago, but great story. So that's gone now. That's abroad.
Yeah, it's gone to South Africa. Sorry, New Zealand. Very recently. Someone else just asked a really good question. What is your favourite mass-produced Ferrari and why? That's a tricky one, actually. I guess probably a V12, well, a V8 or a V12 GT4 Lusso. I think they're cracking cars with their full navigation system and proper hands-free systems. They're great cars, really good cars. Family discount to Ross Cottingham. Ross, I've heard of you many times over the years, but I don't think we've met. So we'll have to have Christmas first before we have family discount. Even managed to keep your wife interested. That's good. James, what's your daily driver? Well, I live at the office, so I don't really drive anywhere. So I did used to have a BMW 1M, which I had for 6 years, but I sold that last year to pay for my wedding. The 250 GTO that crashed at Goodwood, how much would it affect the value, assuming the repair was okay? Well, it was a replica, and it's, you know, with high value cars today, it's not uncommon for people to race replicas as opposed to the real cars. So that was a replica, it wasn't the real car. Any other questions, guys? Can you elaborate on the 330 GTC Rosso? Send us an email and we'll tell you all about it. Right-hand drive or left-hand drive? Weirdly, we've sort of grown to have a collection of right-hand drive over the years, and I think there's something very nice about having a car that works on the side of the road that you live in. And right-hand drive is always rarer, and in terms of ratio demand versus supply, they're more valuable as a result because there are less right-hand drive cars versus demand. And I think that if we have a hard Brexit, the right-hand drive cars will go up in value. Isn't there a Veyron for sale on your website? There is, but it's not here at the moment because we've lent it to someone to sit it in their garage so they can make sure they're happy with it. And I think it's pretty much sold. One car, one road. What do you take and where? GT40 for the Tour Auto, 2,000 kilometers and 15 special stages over 2 days across France.
If it's not indiscreet, discuss. Would number 22 outperform a 250 GTO in auction, do you think? No, I don't think. I think a 250 GTO is more valuable than that 166, but only just. I think that's it, guys. Anyone else got any questions? What is your view on the F40 in Iraq? Well, it's been offered around, well, pictures have been sent to me probably twice a year for the last 6 years. And it needs a lot of work from the photos I've seen. And I'm not sure the video that I saw the other night is the same car. What is the next restoration to be completed? The next restoration to be completed will be that Dino, but we've got a short wheelbase going on, and at the moment, the right-hand drive car, and we're also restoring some. We're about to start another 275. How difficult is it to source a McLaren F1? Probably the hardest car to sell when you've got one, and probably the hardest car to buy when you don't have one and you have a client for one. I think that's it, guys. Any other questions that I've missed? How many staff in total? Just over 40. I think that's it, guys. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Hope it wasn't too long for everyone. And no doubt we'll do another one soon. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye,
Thank
James.
you. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, James.
Cheers.